The 10th year of my marriage to Arthur Davies, I finally found myself pregnant. A fragile hope blossomed within me, a tiny ember in the desolate landscape of our strained relationship. Yet, during the critical period of my pregnancy, Arthur stood before me, offering a steaming bowl of turtle soup, a traditional tonic. My blood ran cold, for I knew with a terrifying certainty that its very contents were designed to induce a miscarriage. Before I could even utter a single word, a new message notification flashed on my phone. It was from Chloe, Arthur's adopted sister, his white moonlight. Her latest post glowed on the screen. "Thank you, dearest big brother, for specially simmering this turtle soup for me. Love you." Below it, Arthur's comment burned into my retinas. "No one is more important than you." A cold, bitter understanding settled deep in my heart. I quietly, deliberately pressed like on her post. Then, with a chilling resolve that surprised even myself, I discreetly scheduled a termination procedure for 3 days later. The moment my finger left the screen, a flurry of hurried footsteps echoed outside the door. Arthur, a storm of indignation already brewing on his face, shoved the door open. With a resounding thud, "Eleanor," he spat, his voice laced with venom. "You're pregnant and you're still creating drama?" I merely simmered a bowl of soup for Chloe and, "You're jealous? Chloe even specifically asked me to bring you a bowl. What's with all the passive-aggressive theatrics?" He slammed a smaller bowl of the same broth onto my bedside table, the ceramic clinking loudly. "Now look what you've done." Chloe's distraught, insisting she needs to come over and apologize to you. "Are you satisfied now?" When I lifted my gaze to meet his, the familiar landscape of love in my eyes had utterly vanished, replaced by a vast, desolate plain. "You're right," I said, my voice flat, devoid of any warmth. "I won't do it again." Arthur blinked, surprised by my uncharacteristic calm. A flicker of genuine astonishment crossed his face. Then his brow furrowed, and a look of profound impatience settled upon his features. "Are you planning to run to my mother again?" he challenged, his voice dripping with annoyance. "Let me tell you, Eleanor, it won't do any good, not this time, not ever." "Run to your mother?" I scoffed, a faint, almost imperceptible curl of my lip. "How could I? Your mother would only be delighted if I divorced you." In the early years, my mother-in-law had occasionally sided with me, offering fleeting moments of support. But as time stretched on, as my womb remained stubbornly empty, her patience wore thin, her gaze hardening with each passing month. Eventually, her support evaporated entirely. I remember vividly the day I cautiously suggested that Chloe's affection for Arthur was more than just sisterly. My mother-in-law had rounded on me, accusing me of having a dirty mind, even going so far as to bluntly declare that if I couldn't produce a child, I should vacate the premises to avoid delaying her son's future. I had recounted these cruel words to Arthur, seeking solace, perhaps even justice. He had merely offered a dismissive glance. "You're always overthinking," he'd scoffed. My mother would never say such a thing. From that moment on, a chilling clarity had dawned upon me. They were a family, a cohesive unit, and I was perpetually an outsider. Now Arthur's eyes blazed with undisguised contempt. "Stop looking for excuses in others, Eleanor. Why don't you ever consider if the fault lies with you?" Yes, he was right. It was my fault. My unforgivable sin was loving him too much, so much that I had kept a devastating secret, enduring years of undeserved blame for our childlessness. But the cruel irony, the devastating truth I had guarded with my silence for so long, was that the one struggling with infertility was him. 3 years into our marriage, I had spent 2 of them shuttling back and forth from countless hospital visits, swallowing an endless procession of bitter medicines, all to no avail. Time and again, doctors had gently then firmly suggested that Arthur also undergo testing. Each time Arthur, ever consumed by his fragile pride, had found an excuse to demur. It was only after my repeated, desperate pleas that he finally, reluctantly, agreed to accompany me to the clinic. "It's all your useless fault, Eleanor," he had grumbled, his voice laced with resentment as he glared at me. "You can't even bear a child, and now you're dragging me into this, forcing me to undergo a medical examination. If word gets out, what about my reputation?" I had carefully explained, my voice barely above a whisper. "The doctor said it would be good for you to get checked too, Arthur. It helps ensure a healthy pregnancy." His expression had softened marginally, Only then had he grudgingly completed the examination with me. But before the results could even be processed, Arthur's phone had rung, a frantic call from Chloe. "Big brother, my stomach hurts so much. Am I going to die?" "Don't be silly, I'm coming right now," Arthur had said, his face draining of color. Without so much as a glance or a word to me, he had abandoned me there, rushing out of the clinic. In a blur. Before I could even utter a single word of protest, a plea for him to stay, he was gone, swallowed by the hospital's bustling corridors. When I finally received the results, the doctor's words had landed like a physical blow. Arthur suffered from oligozoospermia, a low sperm count, making pregnancy highly unlikely. A profound numbness had settled over me. Knowing Arthur's immense pride, his crippling fear of appearing anything less than perfect, I had made a silent, heartbreaking decision to conceal the truth from him. Fearing his discovery, I had cooked, experimented, and meticulously prepared every meal, transforming it into a carefully curated regimen designed to boost his vitality, inventing countless reasons for these elaborate concoctions. And finally, after a decade of painstaking care, of unwavering devotion, I had conceived. The day I told him I was pregnant, Arthur's joy had been unrestrained, unlike anything I had seen in years. He had embraced me tightly, his voice thick with emotion, promising me a lifetime of happiness, assuring me he knew how much I had suffered these past years, vowing to cherish both me and our child. Clinging to him in that fleeting moment, I had truly believed that all my sacrifices, all my silent suffering had been worth it. But Chloe, ever the serpent in the garden, had slithered forward. My sister-in-law, it really took you a decade to do what others accomplish in mere moments," she'd sneered, her voice dripping with acidic sweetness. "And you're celebrating so grandly, hoping to evoke pity from your man?" Her words, delivered with a deceptively innocent smile, plunged the room's warm celebratory atmosphere into an immediate, suffocating silence. "Chloe, that's quite enough," Arthur had lightly rebuked her, his voice a low warning. Chloe had merely pouted, saying no more. Arthur had then, almost imperceptibly, released me from his embrace, settling back into his seat. His tone had grown distant, cold. "Fine. You're pregnant. Just carry the baby to term, and don't stir up any more trouble." In that moment, unable to control the surging emotions within me, I had issued Chloe a direct, unequivocal dismissal. "Done stirring up trouble? Can you leave now?" The words had barely left my lips when Chloe's eyes had welled up, her face a mask of manufactured distress. "Big brother," she'd whimpered, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to say that. It's all my fault. I'm just a burden. I should have died with my parents." With a dramatic sob, she had then bolted from the room. "Chloe, wait," Arthur had roared, springing to his feet, his eyes blazing with fury as he rounded on me. "Eleanor, you are truly insufferable. Are you saying a pregnant woman can't even hear the truth? What did Chloe say that was so wrong?" Without waiting for my response, he had stormed out, chasing after her, not returning until deep into the night. Upon his return, he had simply moved his belongings to the guest room, not uttering a single word to me. Our fractured relationship had only found a fragile truce when later, my agonizing stomach pains had sent me to the hospital for bed rest. It was a nurse who finally broke the suffocating silence in my room, her brow furrowed with concern, as she looked at the bowl of turtle soup still sitting on my bedside table. "What's wrong with the family?" she chided, her voice sharp with disapproval. "How can you let a pregnant woman drink this? This can induce a miscarriage." Arthur's face, pale an instant before, drained further, his voice laced with incredulity. "How can that be? Isn't turtle considered a highly nourishing tonic?" The nurse, seeing Arthur's apparently genuine ignorance, sighed. "For a normal person, yes, turtle is nourishing. But turtle is a cold ingredient. Pregnant women should not consume it in excess, especially during a period of bed rest. It's strange. Didn't Dr. Davies explain this to you?" I let out a soft, mirthless laugh, saying nothing, simply watching Arthur with an almost detached amusement. Arthur cleared his throat, an awkward, nervous sound. "My sister. She hasn't had time to inform us yet." After the nurse left, Arthur's gaze lingered on me, his expression complex, troubled. "Chloe. She definitely didn't do it on purpose. She couldn't have known that turtle soup could cause a miscarriage." "Do you even believe that, Arthur?" I interrupted him coldly, no longer able to bear his transparent excuses. Isn't she a doctor here? My voice turned icy. Yes, Arthur, you're right. No one is more important than your sister. Not even your own child. It can be sacrificed at any moment for her. Eleanor. That's too far. Chloe would never do such a thing. Arthur's words died in his throat. He looked up, his eyes widening in alarm, as Chloe stood framed in the doorway, her face pale. Didn't I tell you to rest? Chloe's eyes were red-rimmed, and she gazed at Arthur with a pitiful, wronged expression. Big brother, she whimpered. I heard everything you said. I didn't mean to harm your baby. You have to believe me. Arthur immediately went to her, stroking her hair. I know, Chloe. Don't blame yourself. Thankfully, nothing happened. I watched the two of them huddled together, a cold detachment settling over me. My heart remained utterly unmoved. Chloe then approached my bed, her steps hesitant, her voice a hushed whisper of apology. Sister-in-law, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. Please don't misunderstand Big Brother and don't be angry with him. He only said those things to comfort me. I never meant to harm you or the baby. She paused, her voice thick with manufactured sincerity, designed to move me. Besides, she continued, that's Big Brother's child too. How could I joke about something like that? I heard someone say that pregnant women could have some nourishing tonics and I completely forgot you were on bed rest. Can you forgive me, sister-in-law? I truly didn't do it on purpose. She delivered her lines with such heartfelt conviction, it was almost convincing. Then Arthur's voice cut in from the side. All right, Chloe said it was a misunderstanding, and she's apologized. So stop being so petty and calculating, Eleanor. Besides, you didn't even drink it. Hearing Arthur's words, the last vestiges of illusion shattered. My child's life, a mere trifle to be dismissed with Chloe's airy I forgot. My agonizing ordeal, dismissed by Arthur's casual you didn't even drink it. Erasing all the harm, demanding I forgive the very person who had almost murdered my child. I raised my eyes to Chloe. There was no trace of remorse in her gaze, only a blatant, mocking triumph shining in her eyes. I no longer had the energy for this charade. I simply violently flung her hand away. Get out. I hissed, my voice low and fierce. Get out. I don't want to see either of you again. Ah! She shrieked, stumbling backward and falling to the floor. Her wrist hit the sharp corner of my bedside table, and blood immediately welled up, crimson against her pale skin. Arthur rushed forward, pulling her into his embrace, soothing her. Are you all right, Chloe? Don't be afraid. It's okay. Big Brother's here. Then he stood, and before I could even brace myself, his hand shot out, delivering a stinging slap across my face. Eleanor, he snarled, his eyes blazing. I have indulged you far too much. You are utterly thoughtless. With those scathing words he swept Chloe into his arms and stormed out of the room. I stood frozen, stunned by the force of the blow, until a sharp tearing pain in my abdomen jolted me back to reality. I felt something precious, slowly, agonizingly slipping away from my body. I couldn't hold on to it. Gritting my teeth against the searing pain, I pressed the call button. Before darkness consumed me entirely, I was being rushed into surgery. When I woke again, the unsettling emptiness of my womb announced the crushing truth. My child was gone. Between Arthur and me there was now an absolute, chilling void. Nothing remained to tether us, no thread, no fragile hope. I wiped away the tears that clung to my lashes and picked up my phone. 2 messages from Arthur glowed on the screen. The first, sent 4 hours ago, read, Chloe's wrist needed 5 stitches because of you. The second, sent just half an hour ago, was a terse, dismissive statement. Come apologize. We'll call this even, and don't ever mention it again, especially not to my mother. I stared at the messages, a cold, bitter laughter rising in my throat. My child's life casually dismissed as even? No, never. Now I found myself almost eager to see Arthur's reaction when he finally learned of his own infertility. I contacted a lawyer and initiated divorce proceedings. The next time I saw Arthur was 3 days later. As I stepped through the front door, I saw him in the kitchen, an apron tied around his waist, simmering something on the stove. Chloe, darling, just a moment, it'll be ready soon. Arthur called out without even turning his head. I glanced around the living room. Our wedding photos, once proudly displayed, had been replaced by a large, Smiling portrait of Arthur and Chloe. My usual teacup, its familiar warmth now a distant memory, was gone, replaced by a garish Hello Kitty mug. Perhaps receiving no reply, Arthur finally turned. The gentle, loving expression on his face, clearly intended for Chloe, hadn't yet faded. But the moment his eyes landed on me, his features contorted into a dark, furious scowl. "You have the nerve to come back?" he hissed, his voice laced with contempt. "Weren't you just lingering in the hospital, refusing to come home? What are you doing back now?" I met his gaze with a serene detachment, ignoring his words as I walked towards our bedroom to pack my belongings. Arthur followed me into the room, his brow furrowed with annoyance. "Eleanor," he demanded, his voice thick with accusation. "I never knew you were such a master of pretense. What exactly are you doing now? Running away from home?" I didn't even lift my head as I replied. "Not running away. Divorcing you." Arthur scoffed, a sneering sound of disbelief. "Do you even hear yourself, Eleanor? Divorce? Where would you go without me? Besides, you're carrying my child." He was right. To be with him, I had willingly severed ties with my own parents. Now that sacrifice, my ultimate act of devotion, had become his sharpest weapon against me. I swallowed the surge of desolation in my chest, casting a cold, indifferent glance at him. "Where I go is no longer your concern. As for the child," I raised a hand, gently touching my abdomen. "It's gone." "What?" Arthur gasped, his voice rising sharply in alarm. "What nonsense are you talking about? The baby was fine. Weren't you just faking illness in the hospital, waiting for me to apologize?" I offered him a faint, weary smile, unwilling to engage in another pointless argument. I simply nodded. "Yes, Arthur. You're right." Arthur, seeing my perpetually cold, distant demeanor, regardless of what he said, suddenly panicked. He moved swiftly, blocking my path. "Eleanor, tell me clearly. What exactly happened?" As he spoke, he reached out, intending to touch my stomach. "Big brother, what are you doing in here?" Chloe's voice cut through the air, interrupting his next move. Arthur whirled around, his eyes blazing as he confronted Chloe. "Chloe, didn't you say Eleanor was fine? Was she faking illness in the hospital? Why is she saying the baby is gone? What is going on?" Chloe's eyes met mine, and just at that moment, I subtly raised an eyebrow, a silent challenge. A flicker of guilt crossed her face, though it vanished almost instantly. Her voice thick with feigned tears, she began to explain. "My colleague did tell me that, big brother. Please don't let her trick you. Isn't she always playing these little games?" As she spoke, she deliberately exposed the bandage on her wrist. Sure enough, the sight of her injury immediately erased Arthur's anger, replacing it with a surge of tender concern. He turned back to me, his gaze as sharp and poisonous as ice, a look that conveyed he wished he could kill me. "Eleanor," he snarled, his voice low and dangerous, "you have truly disappointed me. You would even use our child as a curse. This time don't even dream of my forgiveness. Once you give birth to this child, I will divorce you, and you will never in this lifetime see your child again." "Oh really?" I scoffed, a casual, almost bored indifference in my voice. "Well, I doubt that day will ever come. And as for you, Arthur, you will never have children of your own in this lifetime or any other." I offered him a nonchalant smile, my eyes brimming with pure mockery. "Eleanor." Slap. He lunged forward in a fit of rage, but I was faster. My hand shot out, connecting with his face in a sharp, resounding slap. He froze, his hand pressed against his stinging cheek, his face contorted in disbelief. "You're insane. You hit me." I met his gaze head-on, my voice icy. "Did you truly think I would give you another chance to hurt me, Arthur?" Chloe, finally processing the scene, immediately rushed to Arthur's side, solicitously cradling his face. She then, in a sickening display of feigned concern, spoke up on my behalf. "Big brother, are you all right? Sister-in-law. She probably didn't mean it. She's just angry with me. I'll apologize to her properly. I'll beg her to forgive me." As she spoke, Chloe began to lower herself, feigning a movement to kneel before me, but Arthur quickly stopped her. "Don't beg her, Chloe. Let's go. This divorce, I'm absolutely going through with it." With those words, he pulled Chloe by the arm and walked towards the door. Chloe continued to murmur words of persuasion to Arthur, But as she glanced back at me, her eyes were blazing with smug triumph. I paid them no mind, turning instead to continue packing my belongings. Once everything was neatly packed, I hoisted my luggage and walked out. On the living room table I carefully placed the drafted divorce agreement, Arthur's oligozoospermia report, and my own miscarriage certificate. Let Arthur digest all of that himself. With my suitcase in hand, I returned to my parents' home. Years ago, my mother had vehemently opposed my marriage to Arthur. She had seen through his mother's seemingly amiable facade, sensing her difficult nature, and had worried deeply that I would suffer if I married into their family. But back then my mind had been clouded by the intoxicating illusion of love, my judgment swayed by Arthur's sweet, empty promises. To marry him I had even severed ties with my parents. It was only after I had moved in that I discovered Chloe's pathological possessiveness over Arthur. Arthur, however, had dismissed my concerns. He had insisted that Chloe's parents had died young, leaving her with a profound sense of insecurity, which made her overly dependent on him. He would constantly reassure me that Chloe was merely a child at heart, that she would mature in time, urging me not to be bothered by her antics. Moreover, his mother had also initially played along, chiding Chloe for being childish, and Arthur would promise that it wouldn't happen again. So I had reluctantly let it go, unwilling to cause further friction. But then, due to Arthur's own infertility, I had remained unable to conceive. My mother-in-law had dropped her facade, her pretense of kindness dissolving. Coupled with Chloe's relentless provocations, Arthur's patience with me had also worn thin, leading to the utter deterioration of our relationship. Only then had I truly grasped the extent of my own foolishness. When I finally mustered the courage to knock on my childhood home's door, my mother had taken one look at me and burst into tears, holding me tightly. "You stubborn child," she had wept, her voice thick with emotion. "To just leave and not come back. Do you know how much your father and I missed you?" Hearing her words, the dam inside me broke, and I sobbed uncontrollably, all the pent-up grief and regret pouring out. My father, seeing my suitcase, said nothing more, his silence a profound understanding. Once my emotions had finally subsided, I recounted all the events of the past few years to them. My mother listened, her face contorted with anger, cursing loudly. "I told you, Eleanor. Arthur isn't as kind as he seems, and his mother is no saint. But you foolish girl, you blindly plunged headfirst into it. There was no turning back. Thankfully, you've finally come to your senses. It's not too late for anything. Otherwise, you would have suffered endlessly in the future." This time, I offered no rebuttal to my mother's words. Looking at the table laden with all my favorite dishes that my father had meticulously prepared, my tears threatened to spill once more. "It's all right, darling," my mother said, her voice trembling slightly as she held back her own tears, placing a piece of food on my plate. "You're home now, and your father and I will protect you. No more being stubborn from now on." I nodded, swallowing my tears. Felt so good. I still had a home. I still had parents who loved me. And so I settled into a quiet, warm life at home. Until a week later when Arthur called. "Eleanor," he began, his voice laced with a condescending arrogance. "It's been long enough. Have you realized your mistake yet?" I frowned, listening to his tone. How had I never noticed his profound self-importance before? Oh, right. Because in the past, if he ignored me for just 3 days, I would already be groveling for reconciliation. He never needed to coax me. In fact, after all, this was likely the first time Arthur had ever initiated a call with me. Judging by his tone, he probably hadn't even been home during this period. A wave of pity, both for myself and for the irony of the situation, washed over me. So much time had passed since the miscarriage, yet Arthur remained completely oblivious. If he had bothered to inquire even slightly, he would have known the truth. Ultimately, it meant that I and our child held no real significance to him. At the same time, I felt a strange relief, a quiet gratitude that the child was gone. Otherwise, born into such a dysfunctional family, how could it ever have found happiness? I no longer wished to play his game. I laid my cards on the table. "The divorce agreement is at the house. Call me when you've signed it. Otherwise, there's nothing more to discuss." With that, I hung up. When he called again, I simply switched off my phone. Arthur stared at his phone, frozen for a few seconds. He felt a subtle shift, an ominous change in the air. Chloe called his name a few times before he finally snapped back to attention. He turned abruptly and headed home, completely disregarding Chloe, who was still waiting for him to try on clothes. When he arrived, the sight of the items laid out on the table filled him with a sudden, chilling fear. Eleanor, it seemed, was truly leaving him. His hands trembled as he picked up the divorce agreement, but his gaze was immediately drawn to the other 2 documents on the table. He picked up the report, disbelieving, and when he saw oligozoospermia written clearly as the result, his vision blurred and he almost fainted. He forced himself to open the other report, and his eyes instantly fixated on the word miscarriage. He collapsed onto the floor, clutching both reports tightly. What had he done these past few days? He must be dreaming, right? What was going on? He grabbed his phone and frantically dialed my number, but the call never connected. By the time Chloe arrived, she found Arthur on the floor, alternating between hysterical sobs and unnerving laughter. Chloe had never witnessed such a breakdown. She immediately called his mother, then cautiously approached Arthur, gently calling his name. "Big brother, look at me. What's wrong?" Hearing her voice, Arthur seemed to be triggered. He grabbed Chloe's neck tightly with one hand, his grip like a vice, demanding, "Chloe, what else have you lied to me about? Where's my child? Where's my child?" Chloe gasped, unable to speak, frantically clawing at Arthur's hand. Only when his mother rushed in did Arthur finally regain a semblance of sanity. When his mother saw the 2 reports, her eyes rolled back, and she promptly fainted. After his mother was taken to the hospital, Arthur finally cornered Chloe, demanding answers. "You'd better tell me the truth, Chloe. Is Eleanor really okay?" Chloe's eyes welled up with tears, and she shook her head, denying everything. "Big brother, I truly don't know what happened. Really. You have to believe me." Arthur then turned and walked towards the gynecology department. Chloe, trailing behind, desperately clung to him, pleading, "Big brother, don't go. This is all that wicked woman's scheme. How could you possibly have a problem? She must have made all this up because you ignored her." They wrestled their way to the obstetrics and gynecology ward, where they coincidentally encountered the same nurse from before. "Dr. Davies," the nurse greeted Chloe, a hint of surprise in her voice. "What are you doing here?" Chloe's face flushed with embarrassment. She offered a strained smile. "Nothing, just passing by. You go about your work." But Arthur stopped the nurse. "Wait a moment. How is that pregnant woman doing, the one from last time?" The nurse rolled her eyes, annoyed. She had a threatened miscarriage because of anger. "Wasn't Dr. Davies informed of this after the incident? You said to just handle it ourselves, so why are you asking now?" Arthur's face drained of all color. He raised his hand and delivered a resounding slap across Chloe's face. "Chloe, what exactly have you been doing behind my back?" Chloe crumpled to the floor, not moving for a long moment. The young nurse gasped, immediately calling for security. Arthur was eventually escorted to the security room, and it was only after his mother regained consciousness and arrived with Chloe that he was bailed out. On the way home, his mother, upon understanding the full extent of the situation, almost fainted again from sheer fury. Thankfully, a sliver of rationality remained. She insisted that Arthur undergo another full body examination, suggesting they would discuss everything once the results were in. Chloe walked with her head bowed, not daring to utter another word. Arthur, meanwhile, seemed utterly disembodied, mumbling incoherently, "Eleanor. I need to find Eleanor. This is all fake. You're all lying to me." He made a move to leave, but his mother firmly held him back. She sighed, then gently slapped his face. "Son, you need to pull yourself together. The most important thing right now is to get these tests done." Arthur was coerced by his mother into undergoing the examination. When the results confirmed his oligozoospermia, the entire family was stunned into silence. The next morning, I was woken by the sound of an argument outside my door. Before I even reached the entrance, I heard Arthur's voice. "Mom, please. Just let me see Eleanor." "Impossible." My mother's furious voice cut in. "You've hurt my daughter so terribly, and you still have the nerve to show up here?" My mother made to strike him, but I gently intercepted her hand. "Mom, there's no need," I said, shaking my head. "Go rest. I'll talk to him." My mother gripped my hand tightly. You can't be foolish again, Eleanor. I squeezed her hand, reassuring her. Don't worry. Arthur's face lit up with surprise when he saw me. Eleanor, I knew you wouldn't be so cruel. Let's talk outside, I said, my voice flat, looking at him with an expression devoid of emotion. Don't cause a scene here. Once outside, Arthur reached for my hand. His eyes were shadowed with deep exhaustion, but his voice, unusually, was gentle. Eleanor, he began, I know everything now. It was Chloe, that woman who was constantly deceiving me, keeping the truth from me. She was deliberately poisoning our relationship. Can you forgive me? He tightened his grip on my hand. I promise I'll treat you well. Even if we can't have children in the future, just having you is enough. I didn't immediately pull my hand away. I simply looked at him, my gaze cold and unwavering. Arthur, from beginning to end, you blame only Chloe. Do you bear no fault? Haven't you been enabling her all along? Do you truly not see Chloe's intentions? And haven't you been constantly wavering between the two of us? My voice hardened, each word a hammer blow. Children? You dare to mention children now? Do you think you're worthy of our child, Arthur? Worthy of all my years of devotion to you? I want you to remember this forever. You, Arthur, with your own hands killed your child. And you will never in this lifetime have children of your own. My words, precise and cutting, turned Arthur's face a ghastly white. He released my hand, staggering back a few steps in disbelief. Eleanor. I raised my hand, cutting him off. Arthur Davies, there's no need for any more words. In this marriage, you were not the innocent party. Everything that led us to this point was entirely your doing. This is where it ends between us. I'll see you at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. With that, I turned and walked away. Arthur stood rooted to the spot for a long time, unable to comprehend how he had reached such a precipice. Watching Eleanor walk away without a backward glance, he found he no longer possessed the courage to follow. Eleanor was right. Everything that had befallen him now was a consequence of his own actions. He had to admit, a decade of marriage had long since eroded all passion he had indulged in. The intoxicating ambiguity with Chloe, yet he had been unwilling to relinquish the stability Eleanor provided. He had simply let himself sink deeper into this stagnant, complacent existence, day by day. But when Eleanor truly threatened to leave, a panicked fear had seized him. Only then did he realize how ludicrous his past self had been, how terrifying the thought of life without Eleanor truly was. He returned home, his spirit utterly deflated. His mother, seeing him alone, frowned. She wouldn't come back? Fine. Don't we still have Chloe? Divorce her quickly, son, and marry Chloe instead. Arthur's eyes blazed crimson as he stared intensely at his mother. Is that what you've been saying about Eleanor behind my back all these years? His mother flinched under his furious gaze, a flicker of fear in her eyes, yet she remained defiant. How was I supposed to know you were the one with the problem? If I'd known that, I would have certainly been good to her. She scoffed, then added, her voice sharp. But isn't it still her fault? Knowing you had a problem but not saying anything sooner? And then, after finally getting pregnant, she couldn't even keep the baby. What a jinx. Arthur was stunned by his mother's words. In that moment he finally understood why Eleanor refused to return, why she refused to give him another chance. Mother, Arthur said, his voice terrifyingly cold, I will get a divorce. As for marriage, he let out a sudden chilling laugh. You can forget about that for the rest of your life. His mother fretted. Son, you can't be serious. No woman is worth this, and besides, Chloe has loved you for so many years. You can't let her down. Arthur remained silent, sitting coldly to the side. Seeing his resolute expression, his mother quickly left the room. The next morning, when I arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Arthur was already waiting. I had expected him to prolong the entanglement for a while longer, so his promptness surprised me. But then, as I saw Chloe walk up behind him, everything became clear. Big brother, I'm waiting for you here, Chloe chirped, interrupting Arthur's thoughts. Arthur turned to her, a frown on his face. What are you doing here? Chloe smiled coyly. Mother told me to wait for you. Go home. Stay away from me from now on, Arthur said, his voice laced with disgust. In an instant, Chloe's eyes welled up, and she bit her lower lip, adopting a deeply wronged expression. Big brother, I know I Shouldn't have hidden the truth about the baby from you. But it was because I love you. I can also give you children, and even if you can't have them, we can adopt. What I've always wanted, big brother, is just you. I'll pretend I didn't hear a word of that today, Arthur stated, his voice flat and devoid of warmth. And don't ever say it again. Otherwise, we won't even be siblings anymore. With that, Arthur swatted her hand away. To his surprise, I was standing quietly behind him watching. A flicker of surprise, then joy lit up Arthur's face. He hurried towards me, a faint smile playing on his lips. When did you get here? Why didn't you come closer? I replied, my expression unreadable. Just arrived. Let's go. Seeing my presence, Chloe hastily wiped away her tears, her face contorted with bitter resentment. You woman! What kind of spell have you cast on my big brother? Why doesn't he want me anymore? I offered her a faint, knowing smile. Perhaps it's your heart, Chloe. I didn't spare her another glance, walking straight into the hall. The entire divorce process proceeded smoothly, requiring only a month for the official certificate to be issued. To my surprise, Arthur had, in the agreement, relinquished all his assets to me, leaving with absolutely nothing. When we emerged, Chloe was nowhere in sight. Arthur called out my name from behind me. Eleanor, please, give me another chance to pursue you. Will you? I looked at him, puzzled. He took a new diamond ring from his pocket, about to drop to one knee, but I stopped him. There's no need. Arthur, I'm not playing house anymore. Arthur didn't seem angry at all, a faint smile still gracing his lips. I know. Just watch me this time. Eleanor, I'll make you fall in love with me again. Unwilling to listen to his delusional ramblings any longer, I turned and walked away. As I walked across the street, a car suddenly swerved from the side, hurtling towards me. I froze, paralyzed by terror. Just as the car was about to hit me, I felt a powerful shove. Then a sickening thud. Arthur was sent flying, hurtling past me. Immediately, the screech of tires filled the air, followed by the horrified gasps of the crowd. I saw Chloe rush from the car, tears streaming down her face. She cradled Arthur in her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Big brother, why you? Why did you save her? Do you love her that much? Then what about me? What did all your favoritism mean? Following her gaze, I saw Arthur, covered in blood, lying motionless on the asphalt. The sight was too much. I fainted. In a haze, I drifted into a long, vivid dream. I revisited memories of Arthur and me from the past. Him standing on stage, brimming with youthful ambition, confidently discussing his ideals, so self-assured and calm. I saw us skipping classes together, going to concerts, and when we were caught, Arthur fiercely shielding me, his resolve unyielding. Then the dream shifted. I saw him screaming at me, driven to hysterics over Chloe, his belief in me shattered, his loyalty solely to her. I saw myself sitting alone in the living room, waiting endlessly for his return. The scene then abruptly shifted to the car accident. I watched, helpless, as Arthur was struck, sent flying. I tried to reach him, but no matter how hard I struggled, I couldn't move. Finally, I heard someone calling my name. I fought to open my eyes. I saw my mother, her eyes red and swollen from crying, gently wiping my face. Seeing me awake, she immediately leaned in. Eleanor, darling, you're awake? How do you feel? I shook my head, struggling to sit up. How is Arthur? My mother gently held me down. He's still in surgery. Don't worry about him. How are you? Do you need the doctor to check on you? I'm fine, Mom. Please let me see him. My mother nodded, helping me slowly to my feet. The moment I approached the waiting room, Arthur's mother lunged at me. My curse! She shrieked, her voice raw with grief. What evil have I brought upon myself, to marry my son to a vixen like you? Give me back my son. Give me back my son. My mother immediately stepped in front of me, shielding me, and began to curse at Arthur's mother. My Eleanor is the unlucky one. Stuck with such an eccentric family. Your son is infertile, you raised a daughter who's obsessed with her brother, and after finally getting a divorce, she's hit by your daughter's car. Your family is nothing but a curse. As Arthur's mother and my mother seemed on the verge of a physical altercation, I stepped forward and coldly pushed Arthur's mother away. Everything your family has become, none of it would have happened without your constant meddling, I said, my voice sharp and unwavering. How many despicable things have you done all these years? Do you want me to list them for you one by one? And what role did you play in Arthur and my divorce? Do you truly think I don't know? Arthur's mother's face turned ashen under my relentless questions. She whirled around, throwing herself against the door of the operating room. My son, open your eyes. See what kind of person you saved. This is how she treats your mother. A nurse, her brow furrowed, came over, sternly admonishing them. Stop this commotion. What kind of place is this? Take your arguments home. Arthur's mother immediately fell silent. Soon the operating room doors opened. The doctor regretfully shook his head. We did our best. Family can go in for a final visit. Arthur was wheeled out, his eyes closed, lying perfectly still, as if peacefully asleep. His mother couldn't hold back her grief. She burst into wrenching sobs, repeatedly calling his name. Son! Son! I was wrong. Please wake up. Arthur's brow furrowed, stirred by the noise. He slowly opened his eyes, and a flicker of light, a spark of recognition, passed through them as he saw me. He spoke, his voice a strained whisper. Eleanor, I'm glad. Glad you're all right. In that moment, to say my heart didn't ache would have been a lie. He then turned his gaze to his mother. Mother, after I'm gone, you must not trouble Eleanor. It was our family who wronged Eleanor. You still recognize me as your son. You must never, in this lifetime, disturb Eleanor again. This was my choice. This life I owed to Eleanor. Now, it is repaid. His mother wept uncontrollably, hitting herself repeatedly in despair. Then his gaze found mine. Eleanor, in this life I failed you. I failed our child. I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I only hope you can hold no grudge against me. If there is a next life, I still wish to be your husband. He clasped my hand tightly, tears streaming down his face as he spoke, his voice choked with emotion. Without you, Eleanor, I don't know how I would have gone on. Now it's all right. I am finally free. With those words, his hand went slack, and his eyes closed forever. Finally, my own tears, long held back, streamed down my face. Arthur, if there is a next life, I hope we never meet again. Meeting you is too much suffering. I've had enough of bitterness. 2 months later, Chloe was sentenced to life imprisonment. Arthur's mother, on the very day of his funeral, took her own life with poison, following him to the grave. And I began a new life. I met my husband and I became pregnant. The day our baby was born, a small bird landed on the windowsill, gazing quietly at the infant in the crib. It remained there for a long time, then finally, it flew onto my shoulder. I remembered my first meeting with Arthur, how he had been saving an injured bird. He had told me he loved birds, that he wanted to fly as freely as they did, to live a life unburdened by anything. I reached up, gently stroking the bird on my shoulder, and whispered, "Go. Tell him I'm well. Tell him to let go of the past." Miraculously, the bird circled my head 3 times, then with a flutter of its wings soared away. My husband walked over, resting his head on my shoulder, his voice filled with tender affection. "What are you smiling about?" I snuggled closer into his embrace, my heart full of happiness. "Nothing," I murmured contentedly, "just feeling incredibly lucky to have found you." "Then let's stay this happy forever." "Yes," I replied, a soft smile on my lips. "Forever."